Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bandit Network Television. Thank you for tuning back in to this segment of the podcast. And on tonight, we are going to be continuing to discuss the disappearance of a 2-year-old who disappeared on a camping trip back in 2015, and that is Deorr Kunz Jr. We've talked about this case about, I think, a couple times. I've looked into it. I've spent time listening to the storylines, the backstory, and I haven't spoken anything else besides the actual reading. I did a tarot card reading on the case, but besides that, I haven't given my commentary or my thoughts of what I think happened to Deorr Kunz. But as I say a lot, children just don't go missing. Obviously, something has happened to them that causes them to get reported missing. A backstory on Deorr Kunz Jr. So on July 10th of 2015, Deorr Kunz was at a remote campground located about 10 miles west of Lindor, Idaho, with his parents Jessica Mitchell and Vernal Kunz Sr., great-grandfather Bob, and their family friend Isaac. Now, I don't even know if you would call him a family friend because according to Jessica and Vernal, they didn't know Isaac, and it was really Bob that invited him to go on this camping trip that would happen following what I'm talking about. Deorr was reported missing following his parents went to explore the campground, leaving him with his great-grandfather, Bob. Blood was found on the back of the parents' truck tire, but it is unknown if the blood belongs to Deorr Kunz Jr. And I believe that I've heard that it was animal blood that was on the back of the tire. So I'm not here to confirm nor deny that information, but that is what has been said. And by the way, guys, anything that I talk about in this podcast, I've already should have said this, but all parties, especially when talking about true crime cases, everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. All of this is for educational and informative purposes only. So one of the stories goes, Jessica, Isaac, and Vernal were going down to explore the campsite. As what I read to you, they left the baby with Bob on the hill. Jessica's version of where she saw Deorr differed from what Isaac said where he saw Deorr. Because according to what Isaac said, allegedly, he said, the last time he saw Deorr, he thought he was behind him with Vernal, because Vernal was behind Jessica and Isaac while running down this hill. But then on further recall, he doesn't remember seeing Deorr. He heard Vernal talk, which sounded like he was talking to Deorr, but he didn't actually see Deorr. And I believe that the mother, Jessica, is claiming that Deorr actually went down there with her and Isaac. From my understanding, Isaac has been the only one that's been able to keep his story straight and that law enforcement has believed before in the past. Now, considering that this case is so old, and by the way, if you're wondering what you're looking at on the screen, we're about to get into this because the title of this podcast is Why Did Private Investigators, both private investigators that worked early on in the case, quit? We're going to be talking about that here pretty soon. So, according to Jessica and Vernal, one of the things that they proposed to LE is that Deorr could have been kidnapped, or a bear or something wild animal got to the child. Both of those theories, especially the kidnapping theory, law enforcement did not believe what happened. That's not what happened. That's what they believed. There is one road that is going in and out of this campsite. And then furthermore, if you want to argue the wild animal theories, something could have got Deorr, carried him off. There would have been something left behind, such as boots. I believe that the child was last reported wearing a heavy set of cowboy boots. So if a panther or a bear or whatever came and snatched him up, then chances are a piece of clothing or fragments of what he had on would be found within that location. However, that was not the case. But this is what, the parents think what happened is that he was abducted in the middle of nowhere at this remote campsite. If Deorr is currently, if he is alive, he would currently be 11 years old. He was only 2 at the time of him disappearing. He was last seen having on a camouflage print jacket, blue pajama pants, green and black checkered socks, and brown cowboy boots with lighter brown camouflage print. This is what he looked like at the time of him disappearing. And here is the age progressed photo that is coming from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. And again, this information does fall under the copyright disclaimer, Section 107 of Copyright Act 1976. Allowances made for fair use and purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, education, and research. In this case, we are doing informative and educational research on the disappearance of Deorr Kunz. Let's get back to the title of this video. Why did the private investigators quit the Deorr Kunz case. The first private investigator that worked on Deorr's case initially got the suspicions rolling, in my opinion, because he flat out told the parents, that I have reason to believe that you all were dishonest with me. And his name is Frank Vilt. This information is coming from eastidahonews.com, just in case you want to go view the article for yourself. But it says right here, a former private investigator working for Jessica Mitchell and Deorr Kunz Sr., Vernal, the bio dad, has released a letter he wrote the couple in September when he terminated their working relationship. Now, keep in mind, this information was published. This is an older article, which was posted in January 2016. It was last updated in July of 2016. Frank Vilt agreed to investigate the disappearance of Deorr Kunz Jr. at the request of the Kunz family last August, a month after he says he removed himself from the case. Philip Klein, the other guy that we're about to talk about here soon, a private investigator from Texas, later picked up the case. Vilt tells eastidahonews.com he is publicly releasing the letter to clear up any misconceptions people may have about why he walked away from the prominent investigation, as what they phrased it. In the letter dated September 25th of 2015, Viltz writes, quote, I told both of you that if I felt that you were not telling the truth, stalling me, or otherwise misleading me, that I would withdraw from the investigation. In my professional opinion, both of you lied and misrepresented the true facts that could solve the mystery of your missing son. End quote. Vilt told eastidahonews.com reporter Nate Eaton about the letter and what he believes may have happened with Deorr Kunz Jr. So let's read through this letter that I did have up on the screen right here. So dated September 25th of 2015. Vernal Deorr Kunz, Jessica Mitchell. Dear Deorr and Jessica. Take a sip of water before I go through this. As I previously informed you today via text to your cellular telephone at 8:31 a.m., I am withdrawing from the investigation because of the circumstances beyond my control, including but not limited to a breach of trust on your parts concerning your refusal to allow me to make this case national. Now, what exactly does he mean by that? I am perplexed as to why you did not want me to advertise the $20,000 reward I was willing to put up personal funds in the hopes that the public could provide any information leading to the whereabouts of your son. When I agreed to assist you, I informed you that I would work for my out-of-pocket expenses. I was willing to forego my normal hourly fee. My stipulation was that both of you would be absolute truthful. I told both of you that I felt if I felt that you were not telling the truth, stalling me, or otherwise misleading me, that I would have to withdraw from the investigation. In my professional opinion, both of you lied and misrepresented the true facts that could solve the mystery of your missing son. There are other aspects of this case that I cannot go into at this time, but simply put it, I believe that the searches will be non-productive. The searches are only used by you to cover a possible crime that one or both of you may have committed. Emphasis added. So it sounds like that whoever this former private investigator that worked for the Kunz family, for Vernal and Jessica, he's telling you in the letter right here that he's writing them that there's other things he can basically go into, but he's not going to at this time. So what was so bad for him to just be like, oh, up and quit, you know, I'm wiping my hands clean of this. I ain't touching this. The two of you know something. Those are strong accusations right there. So what else is he talking about? You have to really question. There are other aspects of this case that I cannot go into at this time, but simply put it, I believe that the searches will be non-productive. So is he implying that the searches are non-productive because allegedly he is thinking that this may have been a cover-up to a crime? I don't know. My suggestion is that you fully cooperate with the Limhi County Sheriff and tell the truth. I do not appreciate the fact that one or both of you are spreading rumors that you have paid me. I have not received reimbursement to cover my expenses. So he was not paid, and he also, from what he's saying, that he came out of pocket with his own expenses and was willing to put up 20 grand for the reward. Now, did that ever happen? I was willing to put up personal funds. So he's saying I was willing. I'm assuming that it never was put up. So is he trying to say that the Kunz family turned it around and be like, oh, well, we paid him to do a job and now he's slandering us like they did with Philip Klein, the other private investigator that we're going to hear more about here shortly? I also feel that you are exploiting the public for financial gains. How can you live with yourself? How can you live with yourself? Sooner or later, the truth will come out. And it was dated Vernal Deorr Kunz, Jessica Mitchell, September 25th of 2015. So right here is page number 2, where he's talking about the reimbursement funds. I have enclosed a copy of my expenses and I expect to be reimbursed. I am a professional and I take my work seriously, but I do not like clients that do not cooperate by giving me false and misleading information. Dated, sincerely, Frank Vilt. What was the other false and misleading information that Frank Vilt is referring to? Because he did not emphasize on what that could be. Now we are going to hear from the other private investigator that worked on the Deorr Kunz investigation. And this guy is Philip, I swear every time that I try to get his name right. Philip Light. Let's see. Philip. We're just going to say Philip. The second private investigator that worked with the family out of Texas named, or in his opinion, named them as suspects. And even proposed the district attorney to file charges against the parents. Again, this does fall under the copyright disclaimer, Section 107 of Copyright Act 1976. This information is coming from KTVB.com.
We can't find them. We're not here to be your defense investigators. We are here to be investigators and go find Deorr. Wherever that trail leads us, wherever the evidence leads us, that's where we will go.
About 6 weeks after Philip Klein took on the case, he says his relationship with the Kunz family began to unravel. Klein claims that he told the family about his suspicions during a meeting in January 2016.
And I was very clear. I said, look, you're not going to like what I have to say. And it was like, oh my God, these two people are suspects. There's just no doubt. They can't tell their stories right. They failed polygraph tests.
We found a court record showing the contract between Klein Investigations and the Kunz family. But after Klein's confrontation, the family stopped cooperating.
3 days later, we were fired not fired. He just said, oh, I'm not going to signature on this contract any longer. We said, great, fine.
Klein was the second private investigator that worked with the family. You're about to hear from the first, Frank Vilt. He quit the case by sending the family this letter.
And I said, I am withdrawing from the investigation. My stipulation was both of you would be absolute truthful. In my professional opinion, both of you lied and misrepresented the true facts that could possibly solve the mystery of your missing son. Sooner or later, the truth will come out.
We looked into Frank Vilt's background. This guy spent 19 years with the U.S. Marshal Service. He's retired now, but Vilt told us he knew the family and got involved because he wanted to help.
When a mother has lost her child, she looks into a camera and says, I want my child. Please help me find my child. I love my child. But she didn't want to do that.
Vilt looked into Jessica's past, and he didn't find any evidence, but Vilt has a hunch. You see, Jessica gave up full custody of her other two children to her ex-husband. This is all documented in court records. Vilt believes Jessica may have been motivated to give up Deorr, too.
We have Jessica giving up custody of her other two kids from her former marriage, and I believe the mother made an arrangement to give her child up for adoption.
Jessica wrote about this in a Facebook message. She told us her ex-husband could financially provide her other children a better life when she wasn't working. And she says she sees the children often.
Okay, let me skip forth here and see if I can.
And being questioned so much and trying so hard to remember anything and everything. They got the attorney. They knew we were getting very close. Like the focus has not been on my son.
She was talking about $25,000 raised on a GoFundMe account that pays out to Philip Klein's firm.
That's not for us. That's for travel. That's for hotels. That's for flying specialists in. That's what that is for.
On November 1st, 2017, Deorr's father, Vernal, filed a lawsuit against Klein for breach of contract, libel, and slander. Klein fired back. 2 weeks later, he issued a public statement on his Facebook page asking the DA to consider charges against Deorr's parents.
I think that they knew we were getting close. That's why they got the attorney. They knew we were getting very close.
Let me just stop it right there. Again, all of this information, you have to question what incriminating things, what could be so incriminating that these private investigators are alluding to. And you heard Mr. Philip Klein, the second private investigator, propose that the district attorney file charges against the parents. That is a very strong claim. Something that one would think you have something to back it up with. So what information did they find out? Because Philip Klein, if I'm not mistaken, this lawsuit with him and Deorr Kunz or Deorr Kunz Sr. is still going on, so he's not allowed to speak about it. But what do the parents not want the public to know? You also heard that the reason why they got rid of them, or they hired the attorneys, is because, in their opinion, they were catching on to them, getting onto their trail, getting closer to the truth. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's awfully suspicious. And it's even telling for a private investigator, someone that is hired to work on the case and to get sensitive information, right? Because that's what their job is, to get the 411, to get the details, things that they know probably us as a public don't know. So what the hell could they have found against these parents to feel so confident to propose charges to the DA against them? It's just a question to ask. I'm just hate to be going around in circles.
Look, in all these investigations, you always got to have a boogeyman. And a lot of times the boogeyman turns out to be one of the investigators. We're the ones that have made up the evidence. I've heard that so many times out of Idaho. It's just nuts.
At this point, Klein just stopped talking about the investigation. After all, there's an open lawsuit against him. But he sent us this statement. The truth is the ultimate defense. Jessica says the truth is on her side too, but she's not so sure about her own memory.
With the interrogations and being questioned so much and trying so hard to remember anything and everything, that puts a lot of strain on your memory. That puts a lot of strain on your brain. And at that point in time, being that, you're so out of control feeling, nothing makes sense. And everything just kind of jumbles together.
Yet some people have said, oh, she's changed her story.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like people that have been in a traumatic experience know exactly what I talk about. Like, it's a way to kind of protect yourself from the trauma that's going on around you. That's a way to protect yourself.
Interesting. So that was KTVB. That is the source, y'all. Let's see what else we can find about Deorr Kunz. So another interesting piece of information regarding the disappearance of Deorr Kunz. Police, the past sheriff deputy, which has since retired, has named the parents as being suspects. But the new sheriff that has came in has put them as uncleared persons of interest. I guess that's the way he wants to phrase them. That being said, this interesting piece of information was back in early on in the investigation, police were wanting Jessica to tell them where the body was as a plea deal. She was offered a plea deal and she didn't take it. That's what she's claiming. Now, this information is once again coming from EastIdahoNews.com. Let's hear more about what happened to Jessica Mitchell and why police believe where she knew where Deorr's body was.
You announced that you had finished the third phase of your investigation. What exactly does that mean?
There are 3 phases to this investigation so far. First, we want to start this investigation from the...
So the gentleman that you're hearing speaking right now, the man that you're hearing speaking is Philip Klein. This is the former private investigator, the same one that we just got done speaking of, the same one that believes that the parents are not being truthful.
Round up. We didn't want to influence from law enforcement. We didn't want influence from family. We didn't want influence from anybody. All we knew is there was 4 people on a mountain and a child went missing, okay? So what we did was we went back and we rebuilt this case from ground zero out. And we interviewed probably over 150 witnesses, followed up on, I think it's 300 tips. We have declared it now an accidental death / homicide. That's what we suspect, and we base it on a few things. And I want to go over those things very clearly, Nate, because I'm giving you this exclusive interview, and I want to make sure that it gets out to the public because there's a lot of public conjecture at this point. I want to announce for the first time that law enforcement and the FBI has interviewed Deorr Kunz, the father of Deorr, 9 times. He's been given 9 interviews. None of the stories he has told has matched or has even been verified. And that is very disturbing for us as investigators. He's given us a story. He's given us a timeline. When we go out and we try to prove up or actually just basically prove up simple things in the timeline, it falls apart, and it falls apart quickly.
Can you give us some examples of those inconsistencies?
Sure, I can. Let me go through this, and I'll do that for you. We can't even match simple things like filling up with gas at a local store, a diesel store, up in Ladure on the day of the event, where he clearly says that the gentleman who was pumping the gas actually saw the child. Well, we interviewed a guy that was supposedly had seen the child, and he clearly comes back and says, I don't remember seeing a child. Could have been there, but no. Simple things like a dog in the back of the pickup truck or in the back seat. There was no dog. I mean, these little things that investigators look at as simple things, Vermal has not been able to verify or not verify with us. She's given 5 interviews to law enforcement. None of the stories she's told us has matched. In fact, she changes her story depending upon what day it is.
These are pretty strong accusations as coming from a private investigator working on this case. Now, this is before the lawsuit, which was filed. When was this interview? 2016. Well, anyways, you hear that the guy clearly thinks that the parents are not telling the truth. So, what happened to Deorr Kunz? I don't know. And we'll probably, just like what I said in the Summer Wells case, y'all, we'll probably never know, because at this point, and it's sad to say this, the parents have since separated. They don't live in the same state. You would actually have to look at what was happening in Deorr Kunz's life leading up to July 10th of 2015. What was happening? What motivations could the parents have to get rid of their child? I don't know. I'm just asking a question because I don't know Vernal nor Jessica too much. And unlike the Wells, they haven't been here on YouTube showing all their personal business, so there's not much you can go by. But according to their accounts, they have received the same treatment. And the public, they're in Lindor, I think that's the name of the town, Idaho, has fell out of their favor. How true is this information that we're hearing from the private investigator? The inconsistencies within the timeline and story.
And what day we talked to her. And so that's very, very disturbing to us. We can't even verify basic information that Vernal tells us, and then she tells us at the same time she's supposed to be there, and neither of their stories match. And it's not even close, as a matter of fact. So that bothers us tremendously. Eyewitnesses that we've talked to that they have listed, from guys who distribute the beer to the clerk at the store to the person that pumped the gas to the basic timeline information. They tell us, Vernal and Jessica tell us one story, but then the witnesses say, no, that never happened. Here's what did happen. And no, we never saw a child. So we take all of that and we come back to them with, okay, tell us what really happened here, because all these witnesses you have given us, they don't match. And so they tell us the story, and again we say, okay, we just go into shock trauma, that you're very shocked, you're traumatized, we go out again. And we try to re-verify with different witnesses this time. In some cases, some of them are going, we don't even know who these people are. What are you talking about? And not only that, but it comes down to simple things like, they played with Deorr at the store. Well, we talked to the witnesses before and after who purchased items. They didn't even see a child. They didn't play with a child. It brings concern to us and brings us to the question of, why would they lie to us? Why would they not just tell us the truth?
So I'm interpreting that this Mr. Philip Klein is alluding to the parents lying about having alibis. Again, allegedly, but my interpretation of what he's saying here is that the people that they were given as witnesses didn't check out, telling people that Deorr was being played with at the gas station. Well, who was playing with him? Was it Jessica? Was it Vernal? Was it the people they gave as eyewitnesses? And then whenever the investigator goes back and interviews these people, they don't have a clue. They don't even know who they are. So is this information true that Vernal and Jessica lied about having witnesses and alibis in the timeline? Also, the information about the both of them not being able to keep their story straight unless both of them were in the same room. If you separate them, you hear two different versions.
Add that into Vernal going in for 5 polygraph tests. 5 polygraph tests from different polygraph test administrators, state, local, and federal government. And the bottom line to that is Vernal not only failed all 5, he failed all 5 in the 99th percentile. And that is hugely disturbing to us. He can't even pass a non-control question. Are you going to tell us the truth today? He flunks it. And not only does he flunk it, he doesn't just spike in his polygraph test. It's like a wave. So that disturbs us tremendously. Then we move to Jessica, and we give Jessica 4 different tests. Law enforcement does. And Jessica...
So the 2 people that you're viewing on the bottom screen is the great-grandpa Bob and Isaac, the family friend. So Isaac is a family friend that went on this camping trip. And the camping trip, mind you, was very unplanned. It was something that almost came out of the blue. And no one knows why Grandpa invited Isaac on the camping trip. He explained it in a past interview. He just wants people to be around him because I guess he had a hard time. He since has passed away, I believe, in 2020. But he was on the camping trip. Isaac was on the camping trip. The parents are claiming that they left Deorr up there with the grandpa. While they went and explored the area.
Fails not only to the 99th percentile, but she can't even pass simple control questions. And that's not because she's nervous. She's able to pass her name. She's able to pass where she is today. She's able to pass the certain questions that are no-brainer questions. But you even come close to what happened to Deorr, or are you going to tell the truth today? And she fails so bad. In my 26 years, I've never heard of a person failing that bad. Fourth, today we're going to announce today that there was a cadaver dog interaction with certain equipment at the site, and that cadaver dog did hit positive. I can't go any further than that, other than to say that we do have a cadaver dog that did hit in the initial 2 weeks of the primary investigation.
And this wasn't up at the reservoir concerning the cremains, was it?
I'm not going to discuss where it was or the circumstances around it.
So I'm not going to play the entire interview. If you guys want to go view the interview in its entirety, you can go over to East Idaho News. But I'm glad that he brought up that information because I believe it was back in 2019, a private investigator from North Carolina came up to that campsite and his cadaver dogs hit on something there too. And that was the latest I was able to find. Let's see. Now this, right here. So the cadaver dogs alert on human remains. Now, I don't know if it's going to play or not. Here, hold on. I'm going to have to switch to my phone because I don't want this to mess up. So, let's see. Okay, sorry about that. Here, let me go to my phone and play this information. So this was from back in 2019. investigators brought out a cadaver dog, this one guy from North Carolina, and his dogs hit on
Meet
something.
Miles Knurk. He's the owner of Gurney's. They're a seed company, and they've been selling exclusive
Advertisements. I do apologize.
Good
Thank you
evening.
guys for your
What
patience.
happened to Deorr Kunz Jr.? That's a question that has gone without an answer since July of 2015, just about 4 years ago, when the boy then.
So this information was in June of 2019. Cadaver dogs alert on human remains at campsite where Deorr Kunz Jr. was disappeared.
And 2 was reported missing after a camping trip with his family in Deorr in eastern Idaho. But now we may be closer to an answer tonight. A prominent private investigator who recently took this case is hopeful that they may have made some progress. Our Misty England spoke with that investigator earlier tonight to learn more. She joins us live now from Idaho Falls near the campsite. Misty, what'd you find out?
Well, Mark, David Marshburn is a private investigator who took on this case a couple months ago after some local community members encouraged him to try and find Deorr. So earlier this month, around June 8th, Marshburn brought out 2 specially trained cadaver dogs to search the Timber Creek campground where Deorr was last seen. And according to Marshburn, his dogs made what they call a hard alert on what he believes to be human remains.
Our dogs are cadaver dogs. They find cadaver scent, human cadaver scent. So when they do an alert, we are pretty confident that they're finding remains of a human, but are we saying, can we 100% say it's Deorr? No. Can we say it's an Indian from way back? No. We don't know what's 100% there. We just know the confidence in our dogs that there is human remains of some sort there. It's just what?
Now, Marshburn says that his dogs are trained specifically with human bone, human teeth, and human cadavers, so that is the only scent they will pick up. He says they are also specially trained to be able to identify human remains as deep as 6 feet underground. And because that's what they're trained for, Marshburn says they found something. Marshburn also said after his dogs alerted, Sheriff Penner brought in another dog who also hit on something in this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here.
Who also hit on something in the same area. Now, again, to be very clear, Marshburn told me he's not sure who or what exactly it may be, but he's confident it is some sort of human remains that his dogs alerted to. He says next steps, now up to the Lemhi County Sheriff's Office and local law enforcement.
I know my dogs. I know what we do, and I know they had their past history of finding people, and I'm pretty confident we feel we have got what we need, and we went back, and now Sheriff's Office got to do their part.
Okay, so if you guys want to view the entire video, go over to KTVB. So the cadaver dogs were brought up in 2019 in the summer. The first time they were brought out there, looks like they didn't hit on it for whatever reason. It was looked over. Perhaps the scent was carried downstream. I think that's what he got done explaining. But regardless, when his dogs were brought out there, they hit on human decomposition or cadaver dogs for human remains, where human remains are or could have been before in the past. I haven't came across any updates in what came of that hit in this information. At least from my research, I haven't came across any updates from that. So if police know anything about it, they're probably keeping it under wraps. It's just a very mysterious case. How could this 2-year-old just disappear out of nowhere in the middle of Idaho, in the wilderness? One road in and out. Parents believe that he was kidnapped. He could have been taken off by an animal, but there's no evidence that shows either one of those things happened. So, if he was indeed up there at the campsite, the only other possibility would be something nefarious or homicide. And that's not saying that the parents did anything, and you're entitled to believe whatever you want to about what happened to Deorr Kunz and the parents, but I'm just saying. You hear that law enforcement, the possibility, they said that it's not likely he was kidnapped. Also not likely that he was carried off by a wild animal. They would have found something by now. The previous sheriff named the parents as being suspects. The new sheriff has came along. He doesn't view them as being suspects, but instead uncleared persons of interest. I believe that's how they phrased it. I don't think I brought that information to you. But regardless, very questionable. Another theory, and it's really got me thinking, did Deorr even arrive at that campsite? And whatever happened to him, did it happen the day prior or the afternoon prior? And this day was just used as an alibi and cover-up. That's what some people believe. I don't know. Because I don't see how they would... They went to sleep in the morning, went to the gas station with Deorr, came back. Mind you, Isaac was not even asleep. He didn't go to the store with them. He came back to the site, and then that's where the story of Deorr, Isaac, Vernon, and Jessica went down the hill. And Isaac's saying that it sounded as though Vernon was talking to Deorr, but he wasn't sure if Deorr was behind him. He wasn't able to verify if he was actually behind him. So all things go to the last time that anyone could have saw him was at the gas station. And even that is questionable. If you want to believe the story about him going to the gas station, because according to what the private investigator said, the witnesses that the parents gave were not able to verify the baby was at the gas station. So again, did he even make it to the campsite? Did he even make it to the campsite? The information about the blood that was found on the bumper of the truck, I believe it turned out to be animal blood, but still, I don't know if that's been verified or not. It's just too many weird coincidences that are not adding up. And you might as well call a spade a spade. Yes, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but the last people that's seen that child up there on that hill, once again, it sounds like we're talking about Summer Wells, were the parents. The ones that were up there that day with that baby. And different people you're hearing are not even sure if they saw him that day. It's a very baffling case, but I'm not going to continue trying to wrap my head around things that just don't make sense. I would like to thank you guys for watching. If you have tuned in this far, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Help me get to 10,000 subscribers, because that is my goal. By liking the video or disliking the video, you can do that at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. By hitting those buttons, it lets YouTube's algorithm know that the video is receiving engagement, and it overall helps my channel. Plus, it is completely 100% free. I do invite you to go check out my other podcast about missing person cases and crime stories. And I will catch you sooner than later. You have been listening to Bandit Network Television.